Hello and welcome to our first ever edition of Coffee with Cre8ives. I'm Carl Gibson of Creative Things, and the focus of this series is going to be basically bringing answers to questions that as a young professional or a student in architecture and design you might be having about starting your career or continuing your career, building your career, even things as much as how do professionals find inspiration. We're going to be looking at some projects that have been at least brought to the conceptual phase, if not to the fully constructed phase. And from there, we're actually going to have those professionals talk to us about how they got there. Well, along the way, we'll be answering some questions that you, the audience, have submitted. So thank you for joining us. This is pretty exciting for me. It's pretty exciting for our first guest as well. He's very enthusiastic about joining us. And to tell you a little bit about Mr. Chester Ehrig, I joined the Ehrig fan club when we started working together at KSQ, and and you'll see in that thumbnail picture that he is in his typical business attire, with the Hawaiian shirt, the pin sticking out of his mouth, and the crazy look on his face. That is a typical Chester appearance in the studio. So what I think what you'll find today is that is your very charismatic designer kind of feel. We just lost Chester, so we get to try getting him on. Of course, it's a live stream, so why not have issues also? So let's get him back on. There you are. Hey, buddy. All right, let's get this over here. Let's see how things are going. Hey, Chester, how are you doing?
Great, and you?
I'm doing pretty good. We have to get to the first question. The first question, okay?
Okay.
Which, because of the title of this series, is what you drinking?
What you drinking? Club soda and cranberry juice.
Is that your typical morning routine?
No, this is something new.
Okay. What's
This is something.
do you have a special cup or mug that you're using today?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. This thing is unbelievable. It's the Corksicle. The ice lasts forever. So there's a plug for Corksicle.
Not a sponsor.
That's right.
So despite the fact that I created the title Coffee with Cre8ives, I don't drink coffee. I've
Neither
never
do I.
I've never found but hey, let's do stereotypes and make that a thing, right? So
Yes, it says it all. You want to go out for coffee? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure.
exactly. So I'm actually drinking hot chocolate, which I don't know if you recall, kind of was my morning routine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Especially in the colder days. And I've actually got, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I do have a special mug. It's
Oh
my
yeah.
dad's ceramic
Yeah.
mug that my oldest son made for me a long time ago. Man, I've had this thing for quite some time. So we'll be sipping down on our hot chocolate and club soda and cranberry juice throughout the show. So anytime you feel like you've had too much red text in your script, feel free to take a sip. And if we get disconnected again, hey, that's live streaming for you. So we'll get reconnected as soon as we can. OBS is telling me that my internet is really crappy right now. So fortunately, I am recording this, so we'll be able to put it up because it seems like we might be having some streaming issues. We got a couple people watching. Hey, everybody who are watching. So I think we kind of just get into it. And, I gave a brief bio about how we met and kind of what our relationship is professionally. We'll get into more of that later on, but give us a quick introduction. Who are you, Chester?
I'm an architect, designer, and that's all I've ever really been. That's what I wanted to be since I was in grade school. And I didn't know that it had a title to it. I just knew that designing buildings and designing things was what I wanted to do. And so it wasn't until I got to eighth grade in the high school, the junior high counselor getting me ready for high school, getting all of us ready for high school, asked, "What do you want to be?" And looked at the grade scores, and she said architect. And I go, she was really cute and really good looking. And she goes, "How about architect?" I go, "What's that?" You know?
Yeah,
She
you were
describes
too,
it. I
too
go,
distracted
"That's
by
it."
you were too distracted by the attractiveness of the counselor, right?
That's
What
it.
is architecture?
That's it. Wow. That means I'm going to be driving red Ferraris and dating, really beautiful chicks, and I will be an architect. Wow.
I'm pretty sure all the movie stars portrayed architects in movies back then, right? So you knew that that's exactly what an architect was: red Ferraris
That's
and
it.
big houses and
My test scores, proved, hey, hello. And she said, and the rest is history.
so. Well, you already answered kind of one of these first short answer questions. How did you get into architecture? Which essentially, it sounds like you were just kind of the test scores said that's what you should be.
Well, actually, the first choice I had was to be a math teacher. I didn't like teaching. I didn't like to do that. And I go, no. She says, well, how about an art teacher? No, 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 no teaching.
She
So
really
then it
wanted.
was architect, the third choice, architect, because you use your, art and math. And those were my highest scores. So voila.
So, so I guess she had a quota of teachers to recruit. So the
I
first
think
two
that's
options
what it
were,
was.
yeah.
That she loved teaching. She loved teachers,
So
So
what is your background in terms of education for what you do as a profession?
Ah, I had the great privilege and opportunity to do it old school, and that was through mentorship. And I had to get a job. I had to start a life, and so I ended up getting a job for from an architect and for an architect in San Diego, and it ended up being the most fantastic God sent in the world. I mean, it was amazing. The guy was a phenomenal mentor before I even knew what a mentor was, and he's a brilliant guy and ended up being the best teachers teacher that I could ever asked for. And from that point, he set the foundation. So
Nice. Um, and that's something that we have in common because I also went through the apprenticeship program, um, having I don't know if you could say having been forced, but kind of getting to the point where I was more ready to have a family than I was to have an education. So fortunately, through the strings that we call fate, I ended up in a state that allows apprenticeship for licensure, which turned out to be perfect for my career.
yeah,
So that's something that I think that maybe helped us. I don't know. Maybe that's why you took me under your wing and helped me grow. You saw something. So how long? So let's talk real quick. And this is really interesting because I just had this discussion with somebody on an architecture Discord server just yesterday. You said that you're an architect. Is that by title?
ah, this is very what do you call it? A controversial issue.
Oh, you should have been there for the debate. It was great. It is very controversial.
Yeah, and The definition of architect currently has two definitions. One, and the first one, is that you actually are a licensed professional who designs buildings and projects, etc. The second one, you can be an architect if you are in software business, software design.
We'll just throw that one away. We won't be talking about that one.
I know, but I'm going to take a liberty, my friend. But in the truest sense, I do everything they do. The thing that's different, the thing that is the challenge, is the piece of paper that says you've passed a test. And so, as I've worked for different firms over the years, and that in each of those firms, I did the exact same duties, if not more, than my colleagues. And quite frankly, in all of those cases, that's how I got hired. Just for who I was and what I knew. And so I'm doing that as a rebel, you know, as someone from not obeying the 19th commandment or whatever.
Yeah, right. And, yeah. I know exactly
but
what you mean.
Go ahead.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. But I have a great deal of respect for that piece of paper. And if you're all in the profession and you want to be play this game, don't be like me. So, you know, from that regard, get the license. Just get the license, okay? Get the piece of paper over.
So,
but be cautious. Do not think that that light piece of paper is what makes you who you are.
Yes,
because no,
it does not. I
want
to come back to that because I want to get your thoughts on the discussion that I had with someone yesterday on what exactly it is to be an architect. But to get back to so not education wise, let's say that I consider you an architect. Okay, you consider you an architect. You introduced yourself as an architect, designer. So how long do you feel it took you to become an architect from what you consider yourself as an architect?
That's a tough question.
Was there a moment where you were just like, okay, I'm an architect now?
Yes and no. That's another toughie because there's the power of nuances. The first guy I worked for was M. Allen Keener there in San Diego. And I had no idea. I should have been called Chester Clueless because I had no freaking idea how much I didn't know and how much I knew, and I had no clue. So when that job came sadly to an end, I had to get a job a little bit later on with a renowned architectural firm in San Diego, one of the premier firms, Homer Delawee and Associates. They're now Delawee, Britton and Wilkes. But and I came there and I felt like a dumb little kid that didn't know anything and was desperate to have a job. And sorry for swearing. Anyway, so
it's that 4-letter word. You got to be careful with those.
I get into this firm that's, I mean, an top award-winning firm, and I show my work, nervous, sweaty palms, the whole 9 yards. And the guy goes, yeah, this is perfect. That's amazing. Great. And I would find out 6 months later that I was the highest paid guy in the back office. And I'm going, wow, everyone else here is a graduate and licensed. I'm still clueless, remember? I still haven't really caught on to who I am. All I know is by this standard, by them, who they are, they're kind of certifying that, hey, you're holding it, you're doing it. And I was getting some very, very, very nice projects. And I was working right next to the guy that hired me, who was a partner, John Brenton, who ended up has a reputation, the hardest guy in town, hardest man. But I still, Carl, didn't know. It
Sure.
took a while for it to seep in, and it would be a series of events like that would take place. And the thing came when I started to feel I can do anything. You give me a problem and I can solve it. That's the dawn. That's the deal. It's you've acquired enough where you know I can solve the problem. Give me the challenge. In fact, bring it on.
And you walked into that office knowing 100% that you could solve those problems, right? Because
not the first one or the second one.
And the reason I ask this is because there's a lot of people, especially who are students, who are very nervous about finding that first job. They don't think they're good enough. They're not sure what good enough is, and they don't really have a good metric. It's either that they don't trust people who are telling them what good enough is, or they don't understand what they're being told well enough to say, okay, that's what it is. And I don't know if it's academia or if it's a culture thing. I have seen this in multiple places, the US, UK, Asia. These people who are looking for their first jobs out of school or while they're still in school, an internship, they don't know what it takes to get that first job. And of course, as architects and designers, we like to scare them, right? We call it architorture in school. We tell them as an intern, what did you tell me at KSQ? We put an anklet on you and chain you to the desk, but it's wrapped in velvet, so it's the most comfortable anklet you'll ever have. Which I don't know, if KSQ was my first job, maybe I would have been a little apprehensive, but that's, I think, when I knew that you and I were going to get along just fine.
Yeah.
So my first job in architecture was completely, hey, I think I know how to draw. Here's some of my stuff. Can you use me? And I'll tell you what, walking into that office, I knew 100% of the stuff that I knew then, which is maybe a fraction of a percent of the stuff that I know now. So with that being said, what I'm asking you is, I mean, you were confident walking into that office that you knew how to do your stuff, but how much of that is what you know now?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
To the last part of the question first is that, believe it or not, this is what I found out over the years. And I had the great pleasure of sharing that with Mike before he passed away. We remained friends all his life. And is that, believe it or not, I would say that he set the 80 plus rule, and that he gave me 80% of what I needed to get there. And I'm being very conservative in that. I think it really pushes it up more 85 to almost a high 80s. That's how good he did. He gave that's how valuable the foundation was. I was in shock when I opened up my business and started hiring, graduates. One of the guys was in school at Arizona State University, Paul, and brilliant guy. But how much Mike gave me was phenomenal. Now, the nuances, the last 10, 15% or whatever, is pretty awesome. But the foundation was laid. Now, the answer to the first part of the question is a powerful, important point, and I can't answer that one. And that is 90% of the time plus, no joke, when you're in business and you need to get projects out, Economics 101 takes over. And that's what they don't teach in architectural school, is economics.
Yep.
And what you need is the cheapest draftsman you can possibly get because you're barely paying yourself. Okay? And for a large firm, the principles don't go far from that Economics 101. You need people throwing down the lines. You know, and in today's world, since Revit has a corner on the market, unjustly, I might add, ahead of ArchiCAD, but I'm joking. But anyway, that if you have Revit skills, and that's the most important investment you can make in yourself, believe it or not. Maybe I'm overzealous on that one, but pretty close to it. And in school, and you come out being Revit proficient, you've got a job. Most of the jobs, no matter what they tell you and how beautiful the interview goes and all that, they need production. We would love to think, and sometimes schools, I think, make a huge mistake in this regard, that you're going to come out as an architect and you're going to get to design and do all these great things in design. No, my friend. I mean, they desperately need to get the drawings out, and they're behind. They're behind.
So I want to come back to that idea of being proficient in production when you get out of school, because I think that's one of the things that we'll kind of expound on. My friend, we've definitely gone from short answers to long answers in the first part of this format. So I'm going to go through these next few rapid fire questions, and let's just see. And because I knew this was going to be an issue having you as a guest, Chester, because you and I can talk 12 hours a day and have something new to talk about every single time. So I'm going to go through some of these questions, and let's just do. It can be yes, no, quick sentences, and then we'll move on to, because I think we've had some pretty good long form questions. We'll maybe kind of expound on a couple of things that we went over in those first few questions, and then we'll move on to the first project that we're going to talk about. So, What do you do after graduation, or in your case, what do you do after you're ready to start your career?
I think that the answer really should be that it's what you should be doing in school, and that is forming a commitment to lifelong passion for knowledge, because really it's just the beginning, and if you got that, then you can do anything.
Perfect. How does one start their career into architecture and design?
How do they start it? This is the chicken and egg deal, in my opinion, because I think that it's not the common job. It's a creative. It's like asking an artist, how do you become an artist? Well, dude, it's somehow in your DNA. And you discover, no, I'm not a machinist. I'm a freaking artist. And so you discover who you really are, and then you accept it, and you go, man, I want to be the best that I can possibly be. In fact, I want to be shockingly good. I want to shock my mom and dad, and all the naysayers and the doubters. I want to rock.
Yep. So once you do that, once you commit to wanting to rock, how do you not get stuck just drawing all the time in the long run? And before you answer that question, I want to make this very clear, because you and I have a mutual friend who got stuck just drawing, right? Yeah. But he doesn't consider it as being stuck. He loves it. It's what he loves doing. Is he an architect? 100%.
Yeah.
Does he design buildings? that's an interesting question that I don't think we'll get into right now.
Right.
But
Right.
some people are afraid of getting out of school and just being stuck drawing. So let's make this a two-part question. One, is it bad to be stuck just drawing? Okay. Two, because this happens to every graduate. You get stuck, you get put in production. Not every graduate. You and I know some graduates who have been very fortunate being just put right into design. But if you're put into a production role, how do you get out of that if that's not what your passion in architecture is?
This is one of the reasons that Carl and I could talk.
And remember,
but it's going to be this long. At night, when you get home after the job, pretend you own the business. Do your own projects, do design, make up stuff, and have a blast doing it. Dream big. Don't let anybody steal your dream. Nobody.
Great answer. All right. Let's see here.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
By the way, save those drawings. Put them in your portfolio. They're for show. Because otherwise, nobody's going to know you did it. But you got to be able to show it. Rock with it.
Yep. Dream projects. There's a couple of them here. Is there a movie set that you wish you would like to do the design for? One title. Pick it. Go.
I don't know. I'm going to have to pass on that one.
What about a musical set?
A musical set?
Yeah.
No, not either.
All right. We have to get a dream project something out of you for this question. So based on your wardrobe, let's say perfect studio location.
The perfect studio location, I think, is
for you.
For me, is three areas: a home studio, still love it. A place where you can have a business studio is fantastic because you got others hanging out with you, and it's fantastic. And then something mobile, and I love Starbucks or places like that where you can meet clients, their own homes, their own offices. Are some of the best meetings you'll ever have.
Chester, you got to work with me here, man. I'm talking about your wardrobe.
Oh,
where are you going to retire to? And do because when I say retire, right? When I say retire, I mean continue working, but in the luxury of where you want to work from. And looking at your shirt, and based on the picture that I found, what is it? Tahiti. Okay, there you go. Chester's going to be doing Tahitian global architecture from Tahiti. Now, this one I know you're not going to get, but it comes to us from Dennis over at the Architecture Discord. If you could design for any Warhammer faction, which one would it be?
Yeah, you're right. I don't get that.
Just make one up.
I don't know what war faction is. Sorry, you got to educate me on that one.
No, I'm not going to educate you. You just get to make something up. What's the name of the faction?
Faction? Oh, help me, Jesus. I don't know.
Based on the type of design that you do, what would be your perfect client? What would the name of their faction be? Do you think?
Wow. They'd probably be Arab. They'd be probably something. And my client would be Mahmoud Ben Saeed, my other self.
All right. Is there any architect or designer whose work you compare yours to?
No, and that was a great question because that's one of the things that I feel like I was really blessed with is a love of a lot of different styles. I can do them all. And I know that sounds just really egotistical, etc., but it's true. And it doesn't matter what style you pick, Normandy, it just doesn't. And I love contemporary, I love traditional, you name it, it becomes a beautiful opportunity.
Great answer. What do you drink for long night projects, day projects, or just any day? Favorite drink?
It's actually an energy drink. I usually pop an energy drink in the afternoon.
Fair enough. What are the 2 or 3 big influences which brought you to where you are today in your career?
Oh, wow. The first one was Stedletsky, and can't remember his first name right now, but his last name was Stedletsky. And when I opened that magazine and I looked at that project, it was when I was near the end of my job with ML and Keener, and I go, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. That's it. That's me, and I can do that. And it was a contemporary cast-in-place concrete residence, and it was gorgeous. And John Lautner was another tremendous inspiration to me. And then that was the kickoff. That started this love affair with books. And there's no end to the inspiration. There's no end to the list, all the way up to the current incredible people like Big and Snoetta and Zaha but in the middle of that is Gaudi, and there's no end to the list. And if you got a passion for this thing, your list will be long.
Yep. If you could get any piece of weird furniture, designer, fancy furniture right now, what would it be?
Wow. I think I'd want to make it. I don't know whether, I don't know if there's anything that I want to buy anymore. It's more that I want to make it. Or at least design it and have it made for me. I think that's really what I want to do. I've started a collection on it, by the way.
So a Chester Ehrig special piece?
Yeah.
Yeah. A DZYN.Studio custom piece of furniture?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Frank did it.
And that was all this question. That was it for rapid fire questions. Good job.
Wow.
I mean, we got through. I think we got through the last 9 questions quicker than we did the first 2 questions. So, thank you, Dennis, Iskert, Sketchy, all of you who and DJR, which is also Dennis, from 2 different Discord servers: the Pigeon Head Architecture Discord server and the Architecture Discord server. And if you have any questions that you'd like to see to our audience to have asked of these architects and designers as they come on, feel free to check out those Discord servers or check out the questionnaire that is posted, I think, somewhere in the description that you can add questions to. So, Chester, moving on, do you want to answer a couple more long? Do you want to expound on some of the questions, or do you want to hop into a project? What do you think?
You got the clock in front of you. Oh, by the way, I want to say thank you to those guys too. I mean, thank you very much for the questions. I thought they were great and enjoyed them tremendously. And thanks for the opportunity to have a shot at them. They're great questions.
So this is a really interesting question, and I want to ask. There's someone who goes by the name YouMeet on YouTube who's watching, and he says, that being said, if I don't have that in my DNA, the question's formed, I won't make it in the field, ? And I think he's talking about that passion, that desire to go out and kind of make yourself a rock star that you were talking about. What do you think about that?
That's a great question. And you alluded to our friend. And the architectural profession is really a very, very special mixture of art and science. And there are a lot of pieces and parts to play in the profession that are available. Detailers, spec writers, really, it's a huge list. I mean, I could go on. But, and that can be a specialty where you can provide a service that is invaluable for your whole life, really. And as things are changing now, and new opportunities are coming in with AI and 3D and all the manufacturing, all the stuff that's going to affect architecture unbelievably. If you have math skills and can program, and you have a passion or an interest in architecture, wow, hallelujah. But I must caution you, whatever it is that you choose, if it's just a job, it's kind of like medicine, not necessarily a good choice to make, because this is a hard mistress, architecture is. So, and every job that we perform in life, no matter what it is, if it's just me taking my car down to the detailer, I want the detailer to be passionate about making cars beautiful and taking care of them. So passion, find the passion in whatever choice you make.
And I think that that's really important, because while there's certain, my belief is that there's certain parameters that make you an architect, it doesn't mean that you have to use all those parameters in to fulfill your passion. You don't have to love every single aspect of being an architect in order to be an architect. In reference to our drafting buddy, I think he has a passion for beautiful buildings, but I think more importantly, he has a passion for beautiful drawings, and that shows in his work.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's anyone else I would rather have produce drawings for me, even if it is by hand and scanned in, because I know that I can say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and he can say, okay, here's how you build it. But all he does is draw it.
Yeah.
So if it's not in your DNA to be passionate about architecture as a whole, but you have a passion for visual design, okay, then you're going to follow that visual design. So, and the other way is, if you have a desire, like just a longing to be an architect, and you have to find what that means to you to be an architect. I have strong opinions about whether or not visual artists are architects if they don't understand how the building goes together. That's a different discussion. But that doesn't mean that you can't pursue that, because it's not being an architect. And then maybe there's a fork in the road. You have to decide, which one do I want to be? Do I want to be someone who creates awesome renderings for people? Or do I want to be someone who creates awesome buildings and spaces by the virtue of what an architect does? I mean, you can be an architect and still be a great visual designer, right? But finding that passion, I think, is what really... I think if you're passionate about something, you're going to find a way to build it into your DNA to go out and find that. So there was one other question that I wanted to go ahead and get to real quick that Sean has asked in the YouTube chat here. Thanks, Sean, for this question. And I think this is a very appropriate question, and we don't have to spend too long on it. But what are your thoughts? Will this pandemic affect architecture, both in design and in the field?
That's going to be an ongoing conversation and dialogue. And sadly, I think that it's going to be predominantly diversionary. That's like saying that, the Spanish flu should change architecture. No. The thing that if we continue to focus our deal of solving problems and making life more beautiful and our buildings greener and healthier, then we are truly doing a great job. But one of the first things that's come up is for like restaurants. Restaurant design needs to be larger because that way you get the distancing. No, my friend, that's wrong. Period. End of sentence. Not only does the economics not work at all, okay, and it never will. No kidding. And that isn't a lot of times what you do when you go out and be social, to be able to be with friends, have a table full of guests, celebrate, etc. This is not social distancing, or having little rooms, that we can all be separate with plexiglass deals between, whatever. No, the answer is in medicine and how we socially are responsible when we're sick or exposed to things.
And I don't think I could agree with you any more than I agree with you. And I think here's my fear is that in the academia world, and I've already seen it. All right, people who are taking distance learning courses in architecture, their studio projects are now design something for a post-pandemic world. So what does that even? So. And I can understand, okay, now we have to be creative in thinking about what does it mean to be in a post-pandemic world. But I feel like that's very forced. You're still designing for human beings, and human beings get sick, whether there's a pandemic or not. I'm sick right now, not with the pandemic, but with my annual allergies and sinus congestion. Right. Does that need to change architecture? I don't know. I don't think so. But you know what's interesting? As big as this pandemic is, you know what is going to change architecture? The next disability that a minority of people have.
Amen.
That causes them to not be able to enjoy public functions. Is that fair? I just had this discussion with my 10-year-old son. And that's the part of the compassion and empathy of being an architect. Someone asked me the other day, if you don't have empathy, can you be an architect? What do you think?
There's still architecture done in the world by unempathetic people that is outstanding. So it's hard to say that there's these hard lines,
So I don't know. I think, Sean, to answer your question, I don't think that... I don't know. Yes or no? Do you think the pandemic will affect architecture?
It will for a very short period of time, and it'll be very, very short-lived because the economics can't handle it. And economics is ruling architecture, most architecture, anyway.
Yeah, and I agree.
It's not going to happen.
I'm going to put a little twist on that answer. I'm going to say it will affect architecture. I don't think it should.
Right.
I think maybe there's going to be some. I think what it will affect. Okay, I'm going to backtrack on my answer.
I love you.
I think it will affect architecture in the sense that what's going to be more common now? Distance learning classrooms.
Yeah.
Co-working spaces. Where instead of working out of your home, you need to have a place a professional environment to surround yourself in order to have virtual meetings. Right. So I think in the sense of planning for spaces that have functions that are now more pronounced because of the pandemic, we'll see those changes in architecture. Right. Is that fair? I think that's fair.
Yep. I wanted to do a little tag on here.
Sure.
In short, is that we are on the cusp. So near being able to have drugs designed specifically for us because of our DNA. And being able to take drug strains and modify them instantly based on our own personal DNA. We're going to find that medicine is going to take the most interesting and exciting journey that it's ever taken and solving these problems. And they're the place where these problems should be solved. It isn't architecture that started the problem, and architecture can't address all issues. and even though we'd love it to, but great healthy lifestyle and smart social behavior is where we need to put that and have confidence in that layer of expertise to do the magic. And we're getting there fast.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well, Chester, we're 50 minutes into this thing, and we haven't even started to talk about projects. You want to talk about a project?
Sure.
Let me. The first project that we're going to talk about is the ORU Student Center. And while I'm getting my screen share stuff up, unfortunately I don't know that I'll be able. I'm going to try to screen share with you. I don't know that it'll work. But you're unfortunately going to have to look at you and my screen at the same time if I do that. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay. They can't. You can. But while I'm going here, two questions. First, is it okay if I show this video? Do you want to start with this video and then we can kind of go through the process?
Sure.
What do you think?
That's fantastic.
So if you could talk about the project just a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my screen set up in terms of being able to show this properly. And
okay.
And then you just talk about this ORU Student Center real quick.
Okay. This was a project where David Short of KSQ, that's when we were at KSQ together, came up to me one at the end of the week and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but to bring this on to you so late, but we might have a project here if you're interested in doing it." And it was a new student center on the campus of ORU. I said, yes, would. And the reason is that I thought that it would be an extremely exciting project, and it was. And the ORU campus, as we'll see, is a very unusual campus. It's like no other campus in the nation. It's like a campus that was designed for the Jetsons. It was by Oral Roberts, and the huge TV evangelist, and he had the idea of building a modern and in the future university for Christians. And so what we're going to see here shortly is the finished product being debuted by the students, and a local brilliant marketing guy named Stuart McDaniels of Guru Stew did this presentation, and we worked in collaboration on that, and it was phenomenal. But what I want you to see in the end, not only the fun, but the student comments. And that's what you live for. The users' comments. How do they feel? How does what you've done do something for them? And that's what you're going to see here in this.
So, I'm probably, just for the sake of not knowing if there's copyrighted music in the video, I'm probably not going to play the audio, but I think this video is on YouTube somewhere.
It's not. It's all right. It's not copyrighted. That way you can get to hear it, and it's all public.
Let's see.
That show is so legit, man. I'm so proud. It's so cool. You know, we're maybe a Christian college, but we're more than able to show the world that we have something unique, and that we're smart, and that we can engineer new things.
All right. So, that being said, I'm going to stop the video there. So let's talk about how this design came about. So where do you want to start? Do you want to start with some site photos or some sketches?
Yeah,
How do you,
let's do that.
How do you want to do this?
The site map, because that's kind of where you start.
So the site
is.
You want to do the site map?
Yeah. The
okay.
Site map.
Where can I find that one? Is that?
That's like near the end of that series there.
Is it in this series?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see here. So I've got South Site. I think these are all photos. This is the Axis photos. Folder.
There's in that group. There's a Google shot.
Oh, this one right here.
There it is. Okay. This is the blue circle in your lower left there, with the kind of star-shaped design around it.
Yep.
That's the prayer tower, and there's a sunken garden that surrounds the prayer tower.
Yep.
You actually go down steps into this garden area. To the west, that's the left of the tower, is the chapel. So you have the chapel, then you have the prayer tower. Then to the immediate east of this site, on that axis, you have this bare piece of ground. That's where they wanted the building, and it was a great position for it. And then immediately to the east of that is the pond. And can't remember the name of that pond, but it's going to come up here. And to the north, you're going to see some high-rise buildings up to circular ones. Those are 8 and 12-story res halls. The triangular propeller-shaped one is a 7-story res hall. And the one immediately south, the angular spaceship, they call it, on the south there, that's a diamond, really. You're only seeing half of it.
Yep.
Is probably 80% of the academic studies are in that building. So the original planners had this vision of a garden campus with high-rise pieces, mid-rise pieces in it. And it gave a lot of land, it kept a lot of land open, and it was brilliant. But you had this access between the chapel. Remember, this is Christian college. So you got the chapel, you got prayer, you got student services, and you got nature. And so the idea was, well, let's accentuate this axis, stay on axis. And you've got the worship, you have the prayer, you have student life, and you have nature. Keep them in line. From the prayer tower, the building would not interrupt the view of the fountain and nature, and the building would open up to the sky, to the prayer tower. You could be up in the prayer tower and look down into the student union. You could see each other. And so there was this openness, this idea of transparency in the design that we wanted to do.
And I think I have the site studies PDF. I can actually bring that up. Let's take a look at that. How you're talking about looking down into.
That would be terrific.
Let's see if I can get this pulled up here.
Sketches, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
These guys right here.
This is what won us the job.
And I saw that folder name, and so I should probably address the fact you and I worked on this project together. This was my first project working with you, and at the time I didn't even work for the company that was doing the job. I was on loan from another company. And so my first introduction to Chester was, I've got this, and I'm a Revit person, he comes up and he says, I've got this SketchUp model. And immediately I'm thinking, oh boy, here we go. One of these guys. And you're like, the roof is double sloped. I was like, okay. And essentially we were having trouble getting that design to translate into a model. So that was how I was introduced to this project, how I was introduced to Chester, was through this project actually. And can I just say that I've worked on 2 once-in-a-lifetime projects, and this is one of them, in my opinion. I think that not many architects get to work on projects of this caliber, or of this excitement level. There was a lot of hype around this project, and we'll come back to why there was so much hype later on. But so this is essentially what you were talking about right here. So
Right.
this is the axis that you're talking about in section. So you've got your chapel on the left side here. Here's the fountain, Lake Evelyn, with the fountain, and so this is what you're talking about, being up in the prayer tower, which has the ever-burning gas light up here, which does stay on in the middle of it does stay on in the middle of tornadoes. We did find that out. But you can look down into this. So talk a little bit about this sketch and why this sketch is in a PDF that resides in a folder called What Won Us the Project.
Remember, there's at a tremendously short period of time, and there were some questions I think earlier that alluded to this issue, is if you have a great foundation in problem solving, it will come to serve you. And sometimes when you need it the most, when you have no time and you have a great opportunity. So went out to the site, and all that teaching, all that mentorship comes to you instantly. And you go, okay, what does the site say? We went up into the prayer tower and looked over it, down on the site. And it came to me that, this building should not be an interruption. And it should be something that respects the site and respects the values that the campus believes in and offers their students. And so that was the reason for the shape of the roof. And the walls canted out at 7 degrees. Remember that, Carl?
Oh yeah.
And, and on this shot right in here, the left side, which was the northwest side, is the tallest, and the south west was the shortest height. So it went from corner to corner, and the roof slope did, monolithically. And then you had all the walls that canted it. And so it presented a great challenge. And here this guy comes to our office, and his name is Carl. And I would not know that he was a gift from above, man. And that we would end up doing this together and having an incredible time and becoming incredible friends. But the thing that won was that when the chancellor at that time, Dr. Rutland, was presented with this, that section made all the difference. He saw how that student life, something that Oral Roberts himself was very, very concerned about, would be respectful to the religious values that they had, and that they'd be all tied together. And he saw the line, he saw how the things, the relationships, and fell in love with that. It was instant buy-in. And the second part of it was the views that Carl was showing you of it, the amount of glass in it, the transparency. And that had become an issue on the campus.
Why, Chester? Why is that a challenge on this campus?
Well,
how do you explain
notorious?
How do you explain pre-Arm & Hammer Student Center buildings on ORU's campus?
Yeah. But they had run into severe financial difficulty, and it had happened in the dark. And so the idea was be transparent, be transparent. And that really literally changed the campus. Dr. Rutland's work there was phenomenal, and he was an incredible, incredible client. You could not have asked for a better client. It's a dream client. And let's see.
It's a lot of glass. It really is.
Yeah. There were three requirements that Dr. Rutland gave us, and one caveat. And it was that the building was supposed to be designed for fun, food, and fellowship. And the caveat was no more gold glass. So, and to respect the architecture on the campus.
And to understand what we mean by no more gold glass, just go to Google Maps, look up Oral Roberts University, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and do a street maps view of whatever you can around the campus, and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Every building looks like it's from the Jetsons, and every building, with the exception of the Student Center, is glazed with gold reflective glass. From the outside of the buildings, you cannot see inside. It's as you're driving by, it's just a gold reflection of everything that's outside, back at you. So this was a breakthrough project for ORU.
Yeah, it was. It was the first one that they'd had in about 30 years. So, I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. It was done on time and in budget.
Yep.
Which was pretty awesome. By the way, Carl, they just changed the glass in the chapel to blue.
Ooh,
so
I'll have to go by and see that.
Their blue is now in.
Yeah. So, I'll have to go.
I have to give David credit for that. The only thing after he saw my sketches, he came to my table. He goes, He goes like this. And then he goes, make the glass a little bluer, would you? So make the glass a little bluer. So we have to give credit where credit is due. And David, that was his a gift to the project.
Nice. So let's see. We've got a couple of photos of the finished building. You wanna go through those?
Yeah.
Let's pull those up real quick. And I'm just gonna kind of scroll through these. So here we go. And I believe these were taken by our friend Melissa, weren't they? Were these taken by Melissa?
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Melissa Lukenbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a great photographer. That first picture right there this one here is facing the prayer tower. It's the front of the building facing the prayer tower. And the projections on that left-hand side there are areas of rooms on the inside that project outward, cantilever. And looking north toward all the student res hall and student dining. And that lower floor looks out toward the garden, the sunken garden of the prayer tower. Prayer tower. And the outside of the building is clad in white porcelain tile, which was really nice. Front desk when you enter, and the interior design team, which was Shannon Meyer, and man, I've just forgotten her name. Man, that's bad. Gonna have to help me on that one. The two of them did a spectacular job. Everybody raves about it. Just everybody.
I just realized that I'm muted. So it's Jenna, right?
Jenna.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep. So let's talk about this TV. Is it still the largest high-definition TV in Oklahoma?
I don't know.
Because at the time it was.
Yeah.
But this was a really interesting part of the design because can you talk a little bit about how this came up and why this kind of this became such a large part of the project here?
Well, it was part of the design programming meetings with Dr. Rutland, and he wanted an area that where people could study and hang out together. And on the outside, you see this L-shaped table, which was like a bar, and with plugins the whole length of it, so you could plug in your devices and hang out. And you could also have something from the snacks and the area behind you to eat there as well. And then down below that, into the in that area, are these modular furniture that you just kind of crawl up into and on and all over the place, and you got these lounge chairs that you can hang out. And it was for watching sports, playing games, listening to maybe some important talks or lectures, and you could see it from the whole area behind you. For over half of the facility downstairs, you can see this area, and it's kind of the part of the central core of the building.
Yeah, this is a major part of the project. You can see it from everywhere. And there's a whole ton left in this building. Is there anything Is there anything that you'd like to? So this is from the study room, which is
the living room. They call it the living room.
Yeah, it's not quite sound isolated, but it is definitely a drop in decibel volume from this room to just on the other side of it. Was there anything else that you wanted to look at?
That area. You can see right here into that screened area all the way to the outside.
Yep.
Lake Evelyn.
Yep. Is there anything else that you wanted to look at in this project before we moved on?
No, I was profoundly. I can't say enough about the client, because the ability to do great architecture, the opportunity to do great architecture, and to do your dreams and to get tested, to do what you may have never done before, is because of your client. It's not because of you that can do it. There's many things you'll be able to do that you'll maybe never get to do. But it's finding the client, and a client that believes in you, and there's a development of trust and excitement that they are kind of in their own way saying, show me what you've got, help us. And so Dr. Rutland, can't ever thank you enough.
So there are two things while we're still on this project, and this is going to kind of lead into answering a couple of the questions that we have. How did you find the inspiration for the design for this project? What would you say your process was for this? And is that the same process that you use on every project? I know we looked at some of those sections and some of those the site photos, and you explained what the concept was, but what is your process for getting to that point?
I think that if you wanted to, the best possible resource that I can recommend is a book called Idea Work, and it's on my desk. I keep it around. Here it is, Idea Work, and it discusses the design process that I've come to, and it's really built off of a library, an incredible library that I've had the privilege of building, and studying and being mentored by some of the greats and the lesser known greats. And when that soaks into your mind, it soaks into your heart, and you find your own expression for it, and it comes to you, and it's because you fell in love with it. And I think for the bottom line, that's what it's all about, is falling in love with what you do. And when you do that, it comes back. And it comes back in sometimes the most wonderful and surprising ways. It really does. And like the 3D video on the outside and all of that, that was a dream. And that's a story in its own right for someday, later maybe. But it's a magical story.
So you've used this word dream a couple times in this story about ORU, and you talked about this being a dream client, which, I don't know, would you say every architect and designer gets a chance to work with a dream client?
No. And I think that there are sometimes an opportunity or two, but I think it's oftentimes a little rarer than we'd love it to be. And I think that that's part of our challenge as architects, is that we've not been taught or understood how to grow those clients and how to find them, and let alone how to treat them. And I think that if there was any area that we could invest time in helping one another on, it would be probably that.
Relationships.
Yeah. And being able to discover each other, being able to serve one another, and to have something to give. There's an old idiom that says you cannot give what you do not have. If I ask you for a pencil and you have none, how do you give me one? And so we need to be what we're supposed to be so that we can give magnificently and generously and in abundance.
Yeah,
but we also need to find each other. We need to find each other.
Yeah, I think every architect in their career will have a best client, but not a dream client. And I don't know, would you agree that you can make a dream client out of a not dream client by building that relationship?
Yeah.
I think 100%. And I think I think some of the best clients that I've had are ones that allowed me to build a relationship with them. And this is another interesting thought to put into students, especially new graduates. And this leads into a whole nother topic, but can a studio be a dream client for an individual?
Yes.
I think 100%.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that I started learning around the time that I was transitioning from Synergy to KSQ, was that you really have to start treating those companies that you work for as clients. Because when you start doing that, not only does it start preparing you to be an entrepreneur, but you also start looking at things from a slightly different perspective. They're not your boss. They're not your employer. They're somebody that you're in a partnership with to grow your career. And if you look at them as a boss and employer, you're going to find yourself stuck, right? Because you have to do what you're told. Yeah. But a lot of times an employer can come across as a boss, not intentionally, but because you're just doing what you're told to do. And I'm not telling people to stop doing what you're told to do. Okay, you got to get your work done at the end of the day. But if you take the time to develop those relationships and find a mentor, someone who and this does require you admitting you don't know everything about architecture. If you go into it thinking that you know everything and that what you say has to go, then you're going to have a hard time finding a dream client. Agree? Disagree?
Yep. Absolutely. Well said.
So
Very well said.
I think that building a relationship thing is so important. So speaking of building relationships, you and I have built a relationship over the past, what is it? I guess it's 7 years, 8 years now. Yeah. I think I started at KSQ in 2012.
Yeah.
So 8 years now. And even though neither of us work with KSQ anymore, we actually were able to come back together and collaborate on a couple projects. You want to take a look at those?
Yep.
How are you doing on time? We're about an hour and 15 minutes into this thing. I've been checking on the status of the stream.
Yeah.
The stream is shot. Like, it's like 30 minutes behind us because my internet connection's so bad. But I am recording it, so I will be able to put this up, and we'll chop it up, and we'll put in the great points later on. I think people who join us now will be, like, caught up, but people who joined us at the beginning are, like, 30 minutes behind us. So if you're good on time, I'm good on time.
Yeah.
I'm low on hot chocolate, but it's cold now, so it's now just chocolate milk. It is room temperature chocolate milk, which is interesting. So let's talk about a couple projects that you and I have collaborated on, and this will be a little bit shorter. We'll just go through a couple things about these projects. But the first one I want to talk about is one that you came in and helped us with at Delineations, and this was the Bixby Chamber of Commerce project. Now, this is the building that we started with right here. When you saw this building, if this is the building you start with, where do you even begin trying to be inspired to make a design for this? You know what I'm asking, right? Because there is nothing inspiring about this at all, except that it needs to change. This needs to change, and I am inspired by that. You can check off dog barking from the live stream bingo card.
That's it. This is a great real life project that is great for architectural students to look at and hear what we're talking about. But it's also an ongoing opportunity for people that do have a practice or are at a job where, that are working with big boxes, and this is a big box store. And what do you do to continue to give it life, and give it a second life, and maybe a second life that's even better than the first life? And so you start looking at, what can I do with a box? And that's a whole study in itself, and I have an ongoing study that I do and have done for years on what do you do with boxes? What can you do with boxes? And it's limitless. So
yeah,
when you brought it up and we sat down together, I was excited because this is a box.
So I'm not going to
play with it.
I'm not going to go through the interior layout and stuff like that, because you and I mostly collaborated on we collaborated a little bit on some of the function and program. In fact, maybe do I have well, let's talk about these elevations first, because despite the exterior being somewhat blah and very much a form that we didn't want the end product to be, you still pulled some inspiration off of that front elevation in some of these concepts.
Yeah.
Still keeping, this look right here like this. So if you can recall, I know this was longer than yesterday ago, what were some of the things, what did that session look like in terms of getting to the point where we had something where we could present? And well, now I'll come back to the second part of that later on.
if I remember correctly, we were both sketching together, opposite sides of the table, and I started with the centerpiece of the existing uh, building, and it reminded me of um, mid-century modern, and the simplicity of lines, and what would you do if you brought more light into the space? Well, with the user, that kind of light would be tremendous. And you couldn't flood the place with enough light. And so, well, what if we did open it up and provided clear story glass on that right-hand side there, and then tall glazing in the middle? It just seemed to naturally lend itself to that. You could take the outside surfaces and with minor modification, update them and give them a brand new life. And it would be a totally different building with a completely different spirit to it.
Yep. And I think it's important to note also to anyone who's looking at, what this conceptual design process looks like. These are all sketched on trash paper.
Yeah.
This is we processed the photos later for the presentation to the client, but this is all on trash paper. So I don't know. I think a lot of students now are of the mindset, and I'm of the mindset that maybe you can do this in a digital way, but I think for you and I, especially for this project, just having a roll of trash paper that you can just rip, draw.
Yep.
It was just the ability to get something down and have these ideas just kind of flow out was, I think, really instrument in getting to, we had a couple of different, so we had this concept also, which was a little bit, squarish, the idea of the facade with the sloped roof behind it, still getting the glass in. And then, was this an earlier sketch? Was this?
I think that was
early
the first sketch.
Yeah, the first,
this.
and then it developed into this a little bit more refined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and playing around with the idea of, well, what happens if it's more solid and more transparent, things like that.
Right.
And I think we took that, and I think that's what that came from right there.
Right. I agree.
And then we talked about this elevation here, and it's a little weird for us to talk about the elevation before we talk about why this elevation is this way, but we're going to start with this elevation because that's where we've started this discussion. And we opted to do this from that peaked mid-century concept with that idea of the clerestory glass kind of wrapping the entire structure here. So, and I think this one was one that I did that kind of played on the idea that of that peaked kind of low-slung international style look, with the idea that we knew that there was going to be a co-working space on this street facing over here. So you start to see things like the Chamber of Commerce logo, entries that indicate people are biking to work, a co-working kind of sitting area here. Oh, you can't see my screen, I just realized. Oh, you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that. And then this idea of like this party deck out here. That the client was just jokingly talking about, but I was thinking, why can't that be a reality? And you always start with this question of what if. So I'm going to see if I can get to these site images here, or not. Okay. So this was kind of where we started. We've got our site here, and we had some other nodes downtown that created these pathways here. And essentially what happened is we took this Chamber of Commerce building, and what did it become? through the process of us kind of sitting and just having a jam session. This is an architectural jam session that we really had, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are always fun. You look forward to those in a project. So what do you remember that what became of this? Like in terms of like we started out as, okay, we need a public physical building for Chamber of Commerce. What else does the Chamber of Commerce mean to the city of Bixby? And that just kind of turned into this. Do you remember kind of some of the things that happened with this?
Yeah, it was taking that, the Dollar Tree or whatever it was, as taking that centerpiece and creating an east-west pedestrian tree-lined event, through the parking lot, and changing the parking lot so that there's more vegetation in it, trees, and really making it a pleasant place to park, and just instead of a sea of asphalt out there. You and I talked about that, and what happens when you come into the place. How do you feel orientated? What's in the big blue area there that's hatched in the middle? And the south side, if I remember right, was off of an alleyway. So that would be a more walled section where windows out there would be limited to high clear story. Yeah,
there's a building. You talking about this street side here or the alley back here?
The east-west kind of alleyway.
Yeah.
The true alley is the north-south one in the back.
Oh,
with all the utilities and crap.
Yeah, but, so this is actually like grease traps and stuff from a restaurant back here down in this alley. So how do you make this a path that people want to traverse when you've got grease traps and trash bins and things like that all out the back?
Right. So I mean, you gotta figure out how is there a landscaping opportunity? That's what the trees, indicate. What kind of an environment on the wall do you provide where people don't mind walking past it? Getting it through.
And these are all things that we propose in the vacuum of nobody else there to agree with us.
Right.
Or disagree with us. More importantly, that they can't disagree with us, because you asked a very important question when we started this, and it's a question that you start most of your projects with, which is what?
You say it.
What if?
Yeah, what if?
What if this wasn't an alley? What if this is, excuse me, something where the artists in Bixby come to celebrate their passion, and then the people who appreciate art now have a place where they can walk through from. There's a prominent food truck company that has an office right over here, and it's a barbecue food truck. And he often, the idea is, okay, let's have them park here next to the party deck, and then we can make this side of the building. It's a safe pedestrian alley. Walking down to, there's a Charles Page Park, I think it's Charlie Page Park down here in downtown Bixby, and then there's shops and vending right here. There's another parking lot here, and that was property that we can't really touch, but we use the opportunity of the building in the alley to create a pathway that actually connects the rest of downtown into uses this building to connect two parts of downtown Bixby, which I thought was a great idea. And I this unfortunately was one of those clients that you never really hear back from, so you don't know if it was your ideas or the budget. But this was a fun project to collaborate on, even if it was very short-lived. Because you can take some of these ideas and reuse them. This is how you develop your ideas. You just have these jam sessions, and you keep your drawings, right?
Amen.
Always keep your drawings, because you never know when you're going to come back and do this. Or you can use some of this stuff. This project hasn't been built. It might come back. In fact, what's really funny, I don't know if I told you this, I got contacted by another client in downtown Bixby, who's renovating. It's a very large client in downtown Bixby, who is building a new headquarters. And one of the functions that they wanted in that space was public space for the Bixby Chamber of Commerce to use. So,
oh, wow. This is great.
So who knows? It could come back all the way around, and we end up doing the project through another client. So you never know when some of this stuff comes around. So what's really interesting about this art crawl, this art walk that's in here, is you had the same concept in another project that you and I collaborated on.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. That was the old OTASCO building in downtown Tulsa. And it was...
and I think I'm going to start with some of the pictures of the original building. I'm going to pull some of those up real quick.
Yeah. Memories.
Uh-huh. Now, I came in on this project pretty late. You already had a really good concept of what was going to go on in this project by the time I came in. And my capacity was essentially providing construction documents for your client. And taking your concepts and making them permittable, to say, I guess. But, man, this is another building where, how do you draw inspiration from it in its existing condition?
Right. It really does. I don't think I can ever emphasize it enough. Is that kind of where we started in the beginning of our conversation, and it's been kind of a hallmark between us, and that is passion. Passion is a very interesting thing because it's like the tide. It comes and goes, and there's a beauty in both phases, the come and the go. But if you're passionate about our deal about architecture, then it's your library. And where do you seek your inspiration from? And when you need it, like on a building like this, you need it. And some, like the Bixby project, you need a lot of it. And you need it to be really creative. And for any of you that are listening to this, one of my favorite creatives that I still draw inspiration from all the time is Samuel Mockbee, and he's passed away. And John Freer has taken that studio and continued it.
I took classes from one of his students, one of Sam Mockbee's students. So I was very fortunate to have kind of like that second link connection to Sambo. And I can't stress enough to go look up the work of the Rural Workshop. It's Rural Workshop, right? Pretty sure that's what it's called. Out of Auburn. Is it Auburn University?
Yeah. In Alabama.
Yep.
And Samuel Mockbee had this dream that he was going to practice architecture in the poorest county in Alabama. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. None. Zero. He ends up doing amazing work and with nothing.
It really is.
And inspiring everyone that even comes around and bringing life back to a community that had never had much hope to begin with. And whatever they had was lost. And there was no money.
Yeah, go ahead. So I think this is something that I want this series to kind of focus on, because how many people who are going to watch this? Let's assume a vast majority of the architectural industry watches this video globally. I know that's a stretch goal for me.
That's a big dream.
But let's assume that. How many of those people, percentage-wise, do you think have ever heard of Samuel Mockbee?
Very few. Very, very, very few. Maybe 3-4%. Maybe. Would you call him a starchitect? Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
100%.
There's no question about it, because his dream, again, the dream, was so magnificent that he wanted to challenge all of us. And I really believe that. When you listen to his videos and you listen and see what he did and what the legacy that he's left, that even when you have nothing, you can do great architecture. And some of the greatest work, his clientele were poor. They're not the rich. They were poor. And he lifted them up.
Well, I think if you look at most of Samuel's work, the client was never the individual. It was always, the building always affected the community. Mm-hmm. Whether it was the community of homeless or the community of students who were taking his inspiration and branching out and taking that into their careers. I mean, think of the students that went to that program who are now sharing that same type of dream and motivation with every client that they're working with, whether it be a corporate or down in a low income community or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's I think an important point for students who think that you have to have this grand world famous name and title. I mean, here in Tulsa, how many people do you think know who Bruce Goff is? I mean,
it's a low number, but it's maybe a little higher.
Than Samuel Mockbee, right? But the point is that you can be a rural architect, and nobody knows who you are except the clients, and you can still be a great architect, and you can be inspiration to people and help the community. It doesn't have to be a building that's featured in Architectural Digest, or that is taught in architectural history books or anything like that, because that gets into a completely different topic of we teach what's marketed to us, right? Right. Not necessarily the lessons that you need to know or should know, but the ones that make it into the history book. So anyway.
Well, that is a little segue on that real quick is that maybe that's one of the inspirational projects that this Coffee with Cre8ives is, addresses and inspires, this kind of thinking in others, so that they'll start to pick up on the things that were missed.
That's the hope. That's the hope. So,
but just this building right here, sometimes during this process and even before it, go, where's the OTASCO? Who? Nobody could describe the OTASCO building. It disappears. You don't even recognize it, and the other neat thing about it is the mayor's office looks right down on top of this building. And all the building inspectors, when they leave for the day or come back to the office at night, pass by the OTASCO building.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I don't think we have any real good photos of the buildings that surround this to give context. Let's see if I can find it. There's Fazler. We all know where Fazler Hall is. Okay. So here's Tulsa City Hall, Tulsa Performing Arts Center, the Williams Center, One Oak Building. I'm going to let's drop the screaming orange guy down here, right here. So there's the OTASCO. Oh, look, we've got updated photos. That's, I think, about where the building sits right now, too. So this is the dirty icebox, right?
Yep.
There we go. That's the Tulsa Government Building right there. There's BOK Tower, One Oak Tower, BOK Tower. It's not One Oak Tower. It's BOK Tower, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And then this is the Performing Arts Center, which I don't know. You go there for shows. You go there for shows. You don't go there. Oh, Hamilton was on when we did this. Oh, look at that. So this was kind of the context that we had to deal with. We had to work with.
And then there's a parking lot across the front of this.
Yes, and I've got so one of the things that I want to go through here real quick, and I don't think there's a really good way to do this because I've got renderings, but we also have as we were working on this, Rose, who used to work with me, did some great photo matching some renderings that we did with this, just as the process was going along. So we were able to see exactly what this form was going to look like, with shadows and everything, time of day, from these photos. So this is that parking lot that you're talking about right here.
Right.
And there's the building.
Yep.
I love that she put these plants up here.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to your renderings here in a little bit, but rooftop. This is what the roof looked like before we got a hold of it. And then there's your rooftop garden dining space.
Yep.
And then I think let's go look at some of your original concept renderings. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Let's go. Just scroll through these. Okay. So this was OTASCO was an old auto service store, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that business model clearly didn't work anymore downtown.
Right.
So your client came to you and said what?
That his hope is to add this to his project immediately to the east, which is off the screen on the right-hand side.
Right. The Blue Dome Cafe
across
area.
the alley there that you see.
Yep.
And a Blue Dome building. And this would be filled with boutique, retail, and restaurant activity. So the upper floor there was to be a restaurant for sure, and possibly a coffee shop or some kind of restaurant here on the corner on the lower floor where you see the umbrellas. And on the lower floor on the right-hand side would be some retail, as well as the corner, street corner itself would be retail. So the vertical dark element in the center right there was to be the vertical circulation between the upper restaurant and below. And so another thing that the client did that is super commendable is that garden space there, that exterior garden area, that's a whole lot. It's a site in itself.
It's parking.
And
it's paid parking right
it's
now.
A parking lot. And so he chose to convert that to public space, which most developers wouldn't do. And
it's a risk.
Put it into building and get higher rent per square foot on it. And but he made a brilliant choice to do that. And he was a great advocate of the upper dining space having a garden area up there. And that would come in different sizes or diminishment or whatever. But we struck a great compromise. And so there was this appearance of green that would be seen from below and also enjoyed by patrons up on the second deck. So, and then the third thing that he did that was pretty phenomenal, that I gave him great high marks for, was the decision to redo the alley. And it's in pretty bad shape. And so he, that was a part of the proposal, is redoing that alley and making it more pedestrian friendly. And very, 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 very smart decision. We hope to be able to show you in the future the next layer of proposal for that alley, and that being a what-if project. So there's a great, great designer in Tulsa, and her name is Jasmine Ricken, and she really is a great. She's the lead on that, and she's got a host of fantastic ideas that we worked on together for that alley, and hopefully Carl and I, and maybe even Jasmine, will be able to share that with everyone at a future date.
That'd be awesome. So, and Jasmine is someone who you've recommended to talk to, possibly coming on our show in a later episode. So hopefully that's something we can do. I don't know if I guess I had those pictures in there twice. I was like, did I loop back around? So I think it's interesting that if we look at this corner here, this changed quite a bit from this original concept, didn't it?
Yeah, there's a whole story behind that about the 45-degree angle, which is the current design. We don't have that ready to show yet, but there's a huge teaching moment in that area of working with the city, being able to work with a lot of different departments, get agreements, and then be able to have even changes after that. And how do you navigate that minefield and still leave everybody in a positive space? And that the project isn't hurt by that compromise. And that everybody walks away feeling that they have really won, and they have. And so that could be another
whole nother discussion.
Yeah, a whole nother discussion. Because I think that's the value spots that, a lot of times when you start work in a firm, you don't get to be a part of that stuff. That's really done by senior people. And so sometimes you hear the story, sometimes you don't. It was kind of as director of design at KSQ, that was something that I tried very hard to do, is you always come back and tell your war story, tell your stories. And that's the most important thing as far as we need to get back into as a society and as a practice, is tell the stories. Everybody learns a ton by the stories. They might not have been able to get there. They may, just like our great forefathers, and maybe they weren't on the hunt, but they got to hear about the hunt. And they dreamed of the day of being out on the hunt.
For sure.
That bonfire. And we need to tell the stories so everybody gets to participate at different levels and learn. It is crucial to our humanity that we readopt that and start telling our stories, sharing our stories. It brings us closer, makes us a whole heck of a lot smarter, and makes us a lot more creative, intuitive, and it takes care of a lot of negative discourse if we just tell our stories.
So, and that's one of the things that DZYN.Studio is about, right? Is making sure that the story for each project is told. So, I left this picture up for a reason, because one of the stories of this project is the structural story.
Yeah.
Because there were some heroes that worked on this. Because we literally raised the roof on this, right?
Yep.
And you took a non-structural roof. Well, I mean, it's structural, right? But you wouldn't put 75 people eating dinner on top of the existing roof, right?
No.
So we had to restructure that. And I keep saying, I'm using the royal we here, Chester.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with any of that coordination, with the exception of the construction document side. You had all of this taken care of. And that overhang, that awning, well, all the awnings on this building are structural miracles, in my opinion. You want to talk about that a little bit? Like who worked on it, and kind of do the DZYN.Studio thing?
Well, yeah. I think that number one, architecture, architecture at its best is a group sport. It's a beautiful group sport. So your consultants will make you or break you. And this is an area where I think that currently our education systems are really struggling to help students and graduates, future architects, to really be successful. Because if you talk to and listen to the interviews from Norman Foster, Bjarke Ingels, Zaha Hadid, to name just a few who do some of the most incredible architecture in the world right now. Snoetta, the list is beautiful. They did not follow that education model. Their education really came outside of that. Bjarke turns around and talks about a lot about his experience in library with his partner and the education that they got. And Tadeo Ando talks about that and his life story as that how he educated himself. He never went to school. He never got a degree, by the way. But it's our consultants. And the structural engineer can be your greatest friend, your greatest asset that you can ever imagine. And it goes for mechanical as well. So it can be said that you're only as good as your team. And that is true. And Carl, you're a part of that team, and this building wouldn't be what it is without you and what you did.
Well, sure, but we're not here to talk about me.
Oh, I know, but I'm including you, my friend. And but Ellie Johansson was the structural engineer that I chose. And the reason for that is that I absolutely loved his philosophy. I fell in love with what he was doing. When he came to KSQ and earned a job doing one of our Greek, our Worth Hills Greek project, and he did a great job on that, he and his team. And when I had the opportunity to do this job, I thought of him. And to tell you quite frankly, it was a fantastic experience. I can never say enough about Ellie and his team over there. And
that was 360 Engineering, right?
Yeah, 360 Engineering. And I can't, I just can't say enough good about him.
Because, and I want to just kind of explain real quick why I thought that these awnings were incredible. First of all, those lower awnings, all right? Let's talk about what the city made us do with those awnings. Because if you look at this picture, you wouldn't know that those awnings all come off.
Yes. The city had said, even though the existing building has awnings on it that are over the property line, and we had to remove them. They don't work. Wouldn't work for this building at all. And we could have the awnings, but they must be removable. And so we had to design a set of awnings that could be slipped out very easly and put back on should any work in that sidewalk be required. So Ellie and I and one of his team players over there sat at the table. I'd done some sketches before, and that's another tip. For an architect, a designer, jot down your ideas, draw them out, and have some time to think about them, and still keep an open mind. But your drawings help to share the vision with your consultants. In this case, it was with Ellie.
And they don't have to be like art gallery worthy sketches. It just has to convey the idea. As architects and designers, we're communicators. I mean, I don't know about you. Some of my favorite drawings are the ones that I did in 5 minutes in between task 95 and task 96 of the 8-hour workday that I was trying to get through.
Yeah.
I always write those down.
It's very valid. And I've been listening to a lot of lectures lately about the value of how the physical anatomy of the hand and communication with the brain and how it works with others. It's pretty amazing the value of doing something with your hands. But Ellie caught on to it immediately. We went through several renditions over the period of time. And then it went before a sub. And this guy was an old man that's already retired. And he's a metal worker that the contractor really respected and sat down with the thing. He says, Chester, this guy is telling me it ain't going to work. Well, he's already had me look at it and design it. Ellie used to design it. And so I meet with this guy. And, it started a little rough. The meeting started a little rough because some of these guys are very, very critical of architects and that they don't know what they're doing. They don't see the practical side of things. So it started off in that genre. But there's a book that I can't recommend enough. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you want to win, read that book and become absolutely mentored by it.
Yep.
But I sat with that guy, that man that is my senior, and we sat down and talked. And before it was over, we had one fabulous meeting, and he enlightened us to several of the issues that we might have to rethink. And we went back, and once again, Ellie, with passion, threw in his deal with and made the changes, and we made it work. And it was incredible. And so we have dismountable awnings. You would never know it. And the bolts work just right. And it's going to be pretty fun. And when the sun hits it and what it does to the side of the building with the light, I think it's going to be pretty spectacular. I'm pretty excited about it.
Can't wait to see it. So that one's still under construction, but hopefully they'll be.
Yep.
Hopefully they're using this time in lockdown to make sure that things are organized and get things wrapped up when it gets back underway. So, well, we have officially hit the 2-hour mark. Anything you want to say about the image that's up on the screen?
Not right now.
No, okay.
It's been a fun project, and I feel fortunate I had a chance to do it with everybody. And there's going to be maybe a whole wrap-up story done a little bit later about it for everybody as far as the lessons learned, which would be kind of fun and cool.
Yep. So,
but Carl, this was great.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
I
It was
appreciate you
enjoyable.
Coming on. Do you have any closing remarks? Any
Thanks
thoughts?
for all these questions.
Yeah. I think that was a lot of fun with those questions. And I think what's going to be interesting is I'm hoping that when we get people on, there's a variety of answers that shows that there's not a formula to being an architect or designer.
Right on.
I have one question that I want to ask everybody. And I'll probably start... no, I'm going to end with this question for everybody. Are you a successful architect, designer? Silence.
That's a good end.
So, and I'm hoping that we get, answers from everybody on this.
Yeah,
Because
that would be terrific.
You have to define what your idea of success is. And my idea of your idea of success? Well, mine is each next step, next goal, right? So my idea of success today is completely different than my idea of success while I was pursuing my license.
Right.
And that idea of success was different than before I was married and, trying to, only had to worry about myself. So that definition of success, I think, needs to be flexible. And I think if you have that long vision of your destination, the road is less important than the destination.
Right.
It's very easy to get discouraging if you're more worried about how you get there. It's more easy to be discouraged, I think. Because if you lose sight of that destination, it's very easy to decide, well, I'm not successful because I'm not at that goal. You don't have to worry about where you're at on that road. You just have to worry about, are you making progress to that goal? So hopefully that's something that... So with that in mind, I mean, do you consider yourself a successful designer? Looking back at your career, I consider yourself successful.
Yeah, I do. I've been very fortunate, blessed, but I'm still looking ahead. I'm still fired up.
And I want to point out what you just said. You're very fortunate and blessed. Yeah, I mean, we can look back and say the projects we worked on, we were very fortunate to be able to work on them. But you get yourself there. I get myself there. Yeah, you're in the right place at the right time, maybe. But if you weren't in that place at that time, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to work on equally good project somewhere else. Does that make sense? So you get yourself there through self-investment and making sure that when you walk in that door of that first employer, you exude the confidence that you need in order to let people know that I may or may not have to Google this on how to do it, but I can get it done.
Right.
So,
I love what you said about it, self-investment, and that should be your number one investment, is investing in yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to leave this. We're going to end with Chester. You want to tell anyone where they can find you, if they have any questions about your process design, or if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can always, of course, get a hold of me through Carl or the creative loop here. But my email is Cehrig9@gmail.com. Cehrig 9@gmail.com.
Okay.
And
we can put that. I'll put a little graphic
best
here somewhere in the recorded version. So appreciate it, Chester. Thanks for hanging out with us. And
thank you.
We'll probably do some follow-ups once we get a few more people in here, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. Talk about some of the other projects.
Sounds great.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap everything up here. I appreciate everybody who's stuck around through the stream issues. I'm hoping that maybe we can get those resolved. Maybe not. But you'll definitely be able to watch a recorded version of this, and we're even going to chop it up into smaller pieces where you can get the the important points that you're looking for about your developing your career and developing a process for design and things like that. So appreciate everyone sticking around. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back for more of this either next week or the week after. We'll see kind of how things go and how the guests go. So thanks again. Have a great day and stay safe.